"You're a mechanic. Stay on the ground where you belong," the commander barked. The squadron was surrounded by 8 enemy fighters, tension thick as steel cables. One pilot took a hit, his aircraft spiraling out of control. Nobody saw it coming when the petite woman climbed into the backup F-16. The engine roared to life. The jet shot straight into enemy formation. 15 minutes later, all 8 targets vanished from radar. Radio silence. Someone whispered, Who is she?" Reina Vasquez, 28 years old, brown hair cascading past her shoulders, deep brown eyes, slender frame, mixed European and Latin American heritage, aircraft maintenance technician for F-16s at Rickenbacker Air Force Base. Always first to arrive, last to leave. She checked every bolt, every piece of cockpit glass before and after each mission. She regularly helped pilots clean their canopies, change oil, load ammunition. Never complained, not once. Some younger pilots would joke, "All you know is turning wrenches. You don't know anything about flying." During breaks, Reina sat alone reading technical manuals. She never responded to their teasing. The morning that changed everything? While checking radar systems for a young pilot, he laughed. "Acting like you understand all this complex stuff." Reina just smiled softly, continued her work, said nothing. But here's what they didn't see. Every morning at 5 a.m., when the base was still dark and empty, Reina would walk the flight line. She'd touch each aircraft like greeting an old friend. Her fingers traced the control surfaces, checking for stress fractures the instruments might miss. When pilots complained about something feeling off during flight, they'd always request Reina, because somehow she always found the problem, even when the diagnostics showed green. Lieutenant Jack Morrison once asked her, "How do you always know what's wrong?" Reina looked up from the engine she was inspecting. "When you really understand something, you can feel when it's not right." Morrison laughed. "Feel? Come on, Reina. These are machines, not people." She went back to her work, didn't argue. What Morrison didn't know was that Reina could identify any aircraft by engine sound alone. F-16, F-15, F-22, even foreign jets. She knew their flight characteristics, their strengths, their weaknesses. During lunch breaks, while others gathered in the cafeteria, Reina studied flight manuals, combat tactics, enemy aircraft specifications. She memorized radar signatures, missile ranges, electronic warfare capabilities. "Weird hobby for a mechanic," someone once said. Reina shrugged. Knowledge never hurts. The other technicians respected her work ethic. Senior Master Sergeant Rodriguez, a 30-year veteran, once told the younger mechanics, "When you see Reina's signature on a checklist, you know that aircraft is absolutely safe. She's never missed a single detail, not in 4 years." But the pilots? They saw her as just another ground crew member, useful for maintenance, nothing more. That morning, as she performed pre-flight checks on the backup F-16, Captain Blake walked by. "Make sure you don't break anything, mechanic girl." Reina's hands never paused in their work, but her jaw tightened slightly. She finished the inspection, signed off on the checklist, watched the primary squadron taxi out for their mission, and she noticed something the pilots missed. The backup F-16 sitting forgotten in the corner of the hangar. Fuel tanks only half full. Without being asked, Reina grabbed the fuel hose. Nobody paid attention to the quiet woman preparing a jet nobody expected to use. Major training exercise day, the squadron received orders to patrol near a conflict zone. Among the formation, Colonel Mark Peterson, experienced but hot-tempered. He typically dismissed maintenance personnel as just wrench turners. Reina was responsible for pre-flight maintenance before the squadron launched. Samuel Hawk Turner was also present, former pilot turned advisor, there to observe operations. The moment Hawk saw Reina, recognition flashed in his eyes. They had flown together once before, when she was a young pilot in the Kraken unit, a classified special operations squadron that was disbanded after a mission that never officially happened. Hawk said nothing, just watched. Before takeoff, Reina discovered the backup F-16 had been overlooked. Fuel tanks weren't topped off. She handled it herself. Didn't report it to anyone. But Hawk noticed her efficiency, her familiarity with the aircraft systems. The way she moved around the jet like she'd done this 1,000 times. During the pre-flight briefing, Colonel Peterson outlined the mission parameters. Standard patrol. Nothing complicated, expected. Reina stood in the back listening, her eyes focused, memorizing every detail. Flight paths, radio frequencies, emergency procedures. Peterson noticed her attention. Something you need, Vasquez? No, sir, just listening. Listening's good. Understanding is better. This is pilot stuff. Probably over your head. Reina nodded politely, said nothing. After the briefing, as pilots headed to their aircraft, Hawk approached her. You still remember the old protocols? He asked quietly. Reina looked at him. 4 years of silence broke with a single nod. I thought so. Hawk glanced around, making sure they weren't overheard. Kraken unit training doesn't just disappear, does it? Some things you never forget, Reina said. Why maintenance? Why not pilot duty? Reina's expression softened slightly. After what happened, after we lost Rodriguez, Martinez, and Chen in that final mission, I needed to step back, work with my hands, keep aircraft safe instead of... She paused. Instead of putting lives at risk. Hawk understood. The final Kraken mission had been successful, but costly. 3 of their best pilots didn't make it home. You blamed yourself. I was flight leader. The decision was mine. The decision saved 36 civilians and prevented an international incident. Reina turned back to her work. Tell that to their families. Hawk watched her complete the fuel-up procedure on the backup F-16. Her movements were precise, professional, but he could see the weight she carried. Reina, his voice was gentle. Sometimes the best pilots are the ones who understand the cost of flying. She finished connecting the fuel hose. Checked the gauge. Perfect fuel load. That's exactly why I stay on the ground now, Hawk. As the primary squadron prepared for departure, Reina performed one final check on each aircraft. She walked the line like she did every morning, touching control surfaces, listening to engines warming up. Colonel Peterson, already in his cockpit, saw her through his canopy. He keyed his radio to ground frequency. Vasquez, we don't need you babying our jets. We know how to fly. Reina stepped back, gave him a professional salute, but Hawk caught something in her posture. The way she scanned the horizon, old habits from her Kraken days. She was already thinking tactically, analyzing threats, planning contingencies. The squadron taxied out, engines screaming, afterburners painting the morning sky. Reina watched until they disappeared into the distance. Then she walked back to the backup F-16, ran one more systems check, just in case. A fuel technician later said, I saw her personally fuel that backup bird. I thought at the time, nobody's going to need that thing today. He was wrong. 30 minutes into the patrol, radar warnings screamed across the frequency. 8 bandits, inbound from 2 directions. Colonel Peterson's voice crackled over the radio. All aircraft, defensive formation. We're caught in a pincer movement. The squadron was running low on fuel, limited escape routes. The enemy had planned this perfectly. One F-16 took a missile hit. The pilot ejected safely, but his aircraft crashed 2 miles from base. This is lead, Peterson radioed. We're outnumbered and outpositioned, requesting immediate backup. Control tower responded, negative lead, no additional pilots available. Peterson's frustration was audible. Maintenance personnel stay grounded. We'll handle this ourselves. In the control room, Reina watched 8 red dots converging on 4 friendly aircraft. Her squadron was about to be overwhelmed. Her Kraken training kicked in. Threat assessment, enemy formation analysis, tactical solutions. The bandits were using a classic hammer and anvil approach. 4 aircraft from the north, 4 from the south. They would crush Peterson's formation between them. Unless... Reina was already running toward the flight line before she consciously made the decision. The backup F-16 sat ready, fully fueled, systems checked, waiting. She climbed into the cockpit with practiced ease, muscle memory taking over. Helmet, harness, system activation sequence. Her hands moved across controls like a pianist playing a familiar song. Engine start, avionics online, weapon systems armed. She keyed the radio. Backup Fighter 09 requesting immediate takeoff clearance. Control tower. Vasquez, you're not authorized for flight operations. 09 rolling, Peterson's voice cut in. Vasquez, what the hell do you think you're... Reina pushed the throttle forward. The F-16 leaped down the runway like a caged animal suddenly freed. Afterburner ignition. The jet screamed into the sky. Peterson tried again. Vasquez, return to base immediately. You're not trained for combat. Reina climbed rapidly, studying her tactical display. 8 enemy aircraft, 4 friendly. Math didn't look good, but math wasn't everything. She had advantages the enemy didn't expect. Surprise, superior aircraft, and 4 years of suppressed Kraken training suddenly unleashed. Lead, this is 09. Engaging northern formation. Negative, you are ordered to... Radio silence as Reina switched to combat frequency. She dove from high altitude, approaching the northern group from their blind spot. Classic Kraken tactic. Hit fast, hit hard, disappear. First bandit never knew what hit him. Reina's cannon fire shredded his wing. The aircraft tumbled toward the ground. Second bandit tried to turn and engage. Too slow. Reina was already behind him. Missile lock acquired. Fox 2. Heat seeker away. Direct hit. The northern formation scattered, confused. Who was this new pilot? Reina didn't give them time to regroup. She turned hard left, pulling 7 Gs, vision graying at the edges. Third bandit tried to escape. Reina stayed with him through a series of desperate turns. When he finally straightened out, she was there waiting. Cannon burst. Another kill. Fourth northern aircraft decided discretion was the better part of valor. He turned tail and ran. Reina immediately pivoted toward the southern group. 4 bandits still threatening Peterson's squadron. But now they knew they weren't alone. Unknown pilot, identify yourself, came a transmission on guard frequency. Reina didn't respond. She was too busy calculating intercept courses. The southern group was more cautious. They'd seen their northern companions disappear from radar. They knew a new player had entered the game. Reina used their caution against them. She came at them from below, using the terrain to mask her approach. 5th kill came from a vertical climb. The bandit never saw her until it was too late. 6th and 7th kills happened almost simultaneously. Reina's aircraft danced between missiles and cannon fire like it was choreographed. The 8th bandit, the formation leader, was more skilled. He engaged Reina in a classic dogfight. Turn and burn, thrust and parry. For 3 minutes they spiraled through the sky, each pilot testing the other, looking for weakness. Reina found it first. During a high G turn, the bandit's aircraft buffeted slightly. Structural stress. She pressed her advantage. Harder turns, tighter spirals, forcing him to overstress his airframe. When his aircraft shuddered and lost power for just a moment, Reina was ready. Final missile. Final kill. Radar scope was clean. 8 red dots eliminated. Peterson's voice subdued now. 09. How did you... Who are you? Reina was already heading home, fuel running low. Just a mechanic, sir. Reina declined the victory celebration. Instead, she remained in the hangar, meticulously inspecting every detail of the F-16 she had just flown. The aircraft bore the scars of combat, stress marks on the wings from high G maneuvers, heat signatures on the engine exhaust from afterburner use, slight carbon scoring where her cannon had fired. She documented everything, professional to the end. Colonel Peterson found her there an hour later. He stood in the hangar doorway, watching her work. His earlier arrogance had evaporated completely. I owe you an apology, he said finally. Reina looked up from her checklist. No, sir. You were following protocol. Maintenance personnel aren't supposed to fly combat missions. That's not what I'm apologizing for. Peterson stepped closer. I'm apologizing for assuming I knew who you were, for treating you like you were less than. Reina returned to her inspection. Everyone makes assumptions. Sir, not everyone saves my entire squadron after I ordered them to stay on the ground. She found a small crack in the wing root, made a note for repair. The aircraft performed well, should be flight ready again by tomorrow. Peterson watched her work, the same meticulous attention to detail she'd always shown, but now he understood what he was really seeing. How long were you a pilot? 4 years. Special operations. Why didn't you tell anyone? Reina's hands paused on the checklist. Some chapters of your life? You closed them for a reason. Hawk appeared in the hangar entrance, carrying something in his hand, a challenge coin, Kraken unit insignia. He walked over to Reina, held out the coin. Keep this. Let it remind you that some people will never forget what you've done. Reina looked at the coin. Memories flooded back. Her old squadron, the missions that saved lives, the friends she'd lost. She took the coin, smiled softly. I never forgot either. Hawk nodded toward Peterson. The Colonel's squadron isn't the first group of pilots you've saved, is it? And it won't be the last, Reina said quietly. That's what we do. That's who we are. Peterson extended his hand. I'd be honored to fly with you any time, Captain Vasquez. Reina shook his hand. It's just Reina, sir. And I prefer keeping both feet on the ground these days. But her eyes lingered on the F-16, the machine she just danced through the sky. Some things, once in your blood, never really leave. Nobody should be judged solely by their current job title. There are people walking among us who carry skills, experiences, and courage that only emerge when circumstances demand it. Reina didn't need medals or recognition. What she needed was to honor an old promise. When her teammates faced danger, she would never just stand by and watch. Sometimes the most capable person in the room is the one nobody's paying attention to. The quiet mechanic checking your aircraft might be a former special operations pilot. The janitor might be a retired Navy SEAL. The librarian might speak 6 languages and have a PhD in international relations. We live in a world that judges quickly and assumes often. But real strength, real capability, often hides in plain sight. Reina Vasquez understood something most people never learn. Your value isn't determined by what others think of you. It's determined by what you do when it matters most. And when it mattered most, she flew. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told and remembered, leave a comment and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten. Real people are creating and telling these stories, not mass-produced AI content. Type I will live with dignity if you believe that people who work quietly can still change everything.